This video is going to be an analysis and discussion of a second look that I've taken at Mike Green and the film that we have of him at Marshall in 2024. And it's born out of obviously the Ravens taking him late in the second round on Friday night, to the surprise and shock of so many of us who thought that he was going to be completely off the board for Baltimore and many other teams. I will tell you that this video, or the lead into it, I should say, is going to include some discussion of our Discord, our Ravens Discord's reaction to the announcement that Mike Green was the Ravens selection in round two. And the reason why I'm going to do that is because our Ravens Discord takes the drafts very seriously, like so many Ravens fans do in general. I don't know what the reason is that we've got 50 or 60 focused, serious, and dedicated people in there that all offer their own serious opinions about players, prospects, and how those guys might fit with the Ravens depth chart for 2025 and beyond. It's first of all, it's awesome to see. Okay, just the real astute level of discussion and examination of the players from all over the country throughout the pre-draft process, the combine, pro days, etc. Really, selfishly, to be honest with you, it helped me prepare for creating content. Even stuff like college film that I can't obviously put on my YouTube channel, but I can put on Twitter, Patreon, or post up in the Discord. So while this might sound like a shout out to all those people, it's actually not. This is a setup for a point about Mike Green. As mature, prepared, and I think in tune with the Ravens' needs, as that entire group of Discord people is, again, probably talking about 50, 55, 60 people who are serious about the game. Every one of them was shocked around 9:07, 9:08 p.m. Eastern Time last Friday night. There was a delay in the announcement or something. I think the broadcast was on a commercial while the announcement was made at the actual draft. So people seem to know online quicker. I guess that's just the way it works when you have 900 commercials um, on your broadcast over the course of hours. We were all stunned, essentially, in that Discord, to the point there were some overreactions in terms of the controversy with Green, such that someone just typed Mike Green in all caps, and that was it, and everyone understood what that meant. We just picked Mike Green. No one actually stated it. No one actually used those words consecutively. It was understood. I realized it immediately. I was like, okay, we got Mike Green. That's a tremendous talent. First of all, and the final time I'll talk about it, I don't know anything about the issues or allegations. None of it. This video isn't about that. And so for me, you won't hear opinion about it because, first of all, it's not my place. Nor would I be interested in doing so, even if it was my place. I have no idea what the situation was or is. So for me, I get to leave it at that and focus on the film. If there's anything that I do well here, hopefully that's what it is. Watch the film and evaluate some of it for you. I don't show the film on my YouTube channel for various reasons. I lost the channel 2.5 years ago, completely wiped out by YouTube. So I won't risk that again. I do get to show a little bit of the film on Twitter and in my Discord and Patreon. So you can see the proof is there. I'm not just talking to talk. I'm talking based upon the film that I have watched. So what I did was I went back and watched every game that I did have of Mike Green. The folders had already been built in terms of pass rush, run defense, and two really good coverage snaps, to be honest with you. One of which I just found today. Hopefully I can give you some additional insight or layers of his game that maybe you didn't see, or maybe nobody's pointed out. Depending on how much individual time you and others have spent preparing for the draft and checking out some of these players. I recognize that in the case of this video, me saying that I've re-examined Mike Green film, you may not believe it. That's no problem. I wanted to look at two specific things, however. I guess maybe three. How does he respond to adversity on the field? And then, to a certain degree, that can also, in that umbrella can also compass when the ball goes away from him. What does he do? Also, if you fall down or an offensive line falls on you because he lost his rep really badly, or a teammate collides with you, how do you respond, right? Additional to that, if the ball is out quickly, multiple plays in a row, meaning if the quarterback gets rid of the ball super fast, 3-4 plays in a row, how does the edge rusher, in this case Mike Green, respond on the very next snap? Is his get off still the same? That was some of the impetus or the focus that I had. Basically, does he lose any explosion on the next play after something bad happens? Because bad things are going to happen on the football field, right? Is he the same guy? Um, I did notice some things leading up to the draft that he wasn't 100% all in on every snap. And I'll tell you that when I initially watched Mike Green film like 3 months ago, I am a pessimist by nature from a football standpoint. With other things in the world in my life, I am not. But with football and anything sports related, I've got to turn it up as high as I possibly can. And in order to switch that, I have to be a pessimist to do so. When I first started this to draft scout and I heard about Mike Green, I went into a little bit of my normal mode, which is, well, let's see. Let's see. Let's watch the film and find out. And I did. Within a game, maybe a game and a half, I was like, okay, everybody's right. He has some unique talent, got great burst. Um, uh, when he chops down, whether it's a cross chop or a regular chop as a pass rusher, it has an impact. He's got heavy hands. If he was a boxer or an MMA fighter, I'd say he's got heavy hands. And having watched the film a second time now, I actually did get an extra game, an additional game. I think it was Virginia Tech and Louisiana. I like to pick just as much as I did Saturday morning when I woke up and realized it, and perhaps even more. There's some analogies that I'm going to use here, and it's my way of trying to communicate to you what I think now after watching the film. First one, he reminds me of, and some of you will get this and some of you won't. He reminds me of a basketball defender down on the baseline, and guys are running along the baseline, trying to run off screens. I know now everything's pick and roll, so that shit doesn't even happen that often. But there used to be a lot of action down on the baseline. Guy trying to run across. Green is that guy who can stay with his man down there, and he can collision you trying to run the baseline. I've done that before, and it just knocks you off your path. He just has, I almost want to say he looks like he has old man strength already. Um, I do have an NBA comparison, actually, too, but I'm going to wait until the regular season to see him enough to apply these two names to him from a disruption standpoint. When I say disruption, I don't mean just tackles or tight ends. A couple of things I noticed in rewatch that I didn't cite in my lead up to the draft. So this has to do with running backs releasing in their route. Well, in many instances, trying to cross his face. But a phrase that we used to have was chip the chipper, meaning if a running back isn't releasing directly into the flats or out into a route and he's trying to chip you first, right? He's trying to slow down your pass rush. Suddenly that running back, begins to angle towards you and chip to help out the tackle. Well, you, depending on your read, depending on the scheme and the location on field or boundary, whether you have a nickel defender outside of you or not, man or zone, you can collision him depending on your angle of rush and your rush type. It's a drill. It's a drill that we've done before. Mike Mike Green looks like he's done that drill before or something similar or probably way more advanced than the way that we taught it because he will absolutely smack a running back in the mouth and just annihilate him when he's going to chip and then release out into the pass play. Hence the phrase chip the chipper. Now, it's not on every situation, right? There's been some guys cross his face and he just continues on and rushes the passer. There's been some guys chip him, maybe get into his chest a little bit, and he's unable to disrupt them. They've basically been able to disrupt him. I've seen it enough to enjoy it. There is when you've coached defensive football, and there's a certain instinctual reaction that you get to certain moments on the football field. So it could be, a great tackle, obviously. We all see that. But also whittling it down to a smaller level, an inside linebacker taking on a fullback and blowing the play up. So the running back, the guy with the ball, the tailback, has got to bow out or cut it back, and there's really nothing there. A defensive tackle who traps the trapper, meaning he digs the guard out on a trap concept and prevents that downhill angle for the running back, really disrupts the whole run concept. Chip the chipper is the same thing. It also qualifies. Sometimes it's not even really on a guy trying to chip you. It's just the way that he releases, and he might have to adjust his route underneath. So particular players have the instinct to do that. People call it instinct, but there's actually a drill that you can do to train guys to look for that while they're running their moves. It's beautiful. And Green does it twice on film that I have. I have some personal experience with that as a coach. meaning coaching it very directly in a deep manner all week to either an outside linebacker or an inside linebacker. And in some of those situations, you kind of over focus on it. This particular formation, this situation, the running back's going to leak into the flats. And you tell them, well, this one particular time, hey, the running back, you show them on film. Hey, where's the running back looking right now? Hey, coach, he's looking back at the quarterback. Where would you be? I will be covering him. He ain't looking at you, kid. Go get him. Mike Green brings that sort of flavor to the game. Aggressive, tough. I'm not really talking about necessarily his talent. We've got a supreme amount of talent on this defense already. Defensive tackle, the main area of concern, although I do have some high hopes for some of the people that we brought in, either Peebles that we drafted or the UDFAs. Nonetheless, that would be the position that's of relative concern for me. Green doesn't just bring athleticism as an outside linebacker, edge rusher. He finishes tackles. He's got great range to go get the quarterback or a running back, like I said, trying to get through a lane on a run play. He's also playing the game with, for lack of a better word, an edge. And I think the Ravens could use some of that. We've been effective defensively for the last couple of years, but last 3 really. Other than the really poor start that Zach Gore had last year in his first year as defense coordinator, kind of really righted that ship from week 11 onward. Even though for the better part of the last 3 years we've played high quality defense, again, omitting the initial portion of the season in 2024, there's some things that we haven't done great. I get it that we focus on sacks, interceptions, points per game allowed, and all those things. And for the most part, the last 3 years, we've been pretty good at it. One thing we have been poor at, in my opinion, if you think back to the Chiefs' loss in the AFC Championship game, and I know I should have provided a trigger warning for that, right? How many times in that game did we collision or even touch Travis Kelce on his releases? You know the answer, but I'll give it to you anyway. 0. We have needed some extra levels of physicality. And Green, to go back to my NBA analogy, he makes contact with people. He makes contact with running backs, tight ends. Sometimes he gets knocked a little bit off balance. I think we need to turn up the level of physicality sometimes 2 levels. Penalties be damned. I do want to compare Green to another edge defender that was drafted, and this is a talented player, someone I wouldn't have minded at all for the Ravens to get, but I do have to give. I'm going to use that player to parlay into one small negative about Green when watching the film. So, consistent pursuit from him on run plays away. Now, it's not as bad as Donovan Ezeraku, but it is noticeable. Something the Ravens, I think, will want to focus on. And if it doesn't change, you can expect to not see him on the field on a lot of 1st and 10s. Virginia Tech game. They ran a lot. I think 7 of their first 8 plays were away from Green. He was to the field generally. So, to me, it stands to reason Virginia Tech knew where he was. We're going to run into the boundary to get away from him. Now, this is different, though. This is a different dynamic than with Ezeraku. Some of you may remember in my top 10 edge defenders in the NFL draft video, I talked about Ezeraku. Of course, he belonged as one of those top 10 players. And again, I would have enjoyed having him on the Ravens if we weren't able to get a guy like Mike Green. Ezeraku, however, would not close down on like zone read plays where the quarterback gives it to the running back. The offense for Virginia Tech against BC literally like 7 times in the first half, maybe it was 9, lined up, saw the defense. Everyone looked to the sideline. They flipped the running back to Ezeraku's side and then ran zone read away from him. Now, it wasn't to avoid him. It was because he wouldn't close down to go get the football. The point here for me is Green doesn't have that issue to that extent. It's a smaller, I would say, problem. Maybe 10, 15% of the total negative impact that it had with Ezeraku, it has with Green. There was twice in the Virginia Tech game, same dynamic occurred as with Ezeraku. But generally, Mike Green plays like his hair is on fire. Against the run or the pass. So does Ezeraku, right, for the most part, but primarily his is against the pass or run action to his side. Green plays with incredible force and commitment. I'm not worried about either one of those guys long term. As a Raku, I think he'll get the point. If you're off the field for a stretch, like Bobby Knight said, the best communicator is the bench. Eventually, it makes its way to your brain and it changes your behavior. There's a middleman there that I won't mention. Um, Even less concerned about Mike Green in that regard. We, as a Ravens fan base, are extremely blessed right now. We have great depth at the outside linebacker and defensive end position to, account for any issues with cardio, fatigue, or effort, which again, I don't expect to be an issue with Mike Green. The depth that we have is truly a blessing because we've already got guys producing, right? Owe had 10 sacks for the first time 2024. Van Noy, look, not only does Van Noy have 21 and a half sacks in his 30 games in Baltimore, if you extrapolate back 5 more games, his last 5 games with the Chargers in 2022, you may say, Coach, well, why? Here's why. In his last 35 regular season games, 30 with the Ravens, and the previous 5 to end the 2022 season with the Chargers, Kyle Van Noy actually has 26 and a half sacks. You probably already know what I'm going with this. Only 2 players in the NFL have more sacks than Van Noy during that stretch. Is it Myles Garrett in his last 35 games? No, he had 23. Maybe it's 23 and a half. TJ Watt in his last 35 games, not him either. He's only got 21. Michael Parsons, 23 and a half. What are we paying Kyle Van Noy compared to those 3 guys? Look at the sack output. The guys who his Van Noy's sack production is exceeding. That's truly remarkable. Feel free to look it up for yourself. Might take you a while. I use 2 different manners to research it and double check. Only 2 guys have Van Noy beat in the last 35 games played. And the reason why I'm using that is because, of course, Van Noy didn't play in the first 3 games of 2023. Only played like 17 snaps in his first game with the Ravens at the Browns. I think it was week 4 of 2023. Maybe I have 1 week off there. But in any case, it's Trey Hendrickson and Nick Bosa. Trey Hendrickson has 28 and a half sacks in his last 35 games, and I think Nick Bosa has 33.5. Feel free to double check those. It seems like a high number for Bosa. Like I said, I used 2 different methods of research, and they both lined up. But if you want to triple check me and tell me what you find in the comment section, no problem. The point is this. Add Green to Owe and Van Noy, who are already producing. Van Noy producing at how many other Ravens edge defenders have produced at that level in their first 30 games with Baltimore? Well, in any 30-game stretch, right? We know their names, right? Suggs, Doomerville, among others. This is an incredible amount of depth that we have. Do you think the position goes 4 deep, 5 deep, or 6 deep? When you add Tavius Robinson, you have to add him. If you don't, you're really not being intellectually honest. And then David Ojabo and Adisa Isaac. Somewhere around there between those 2, or if you switch the order, probably stops in terms of the trusted depth for this team. Nonetheless, I think the potential of the defense has improved dramatically with Green's acquisition and also Malachi Starks. They're both young, tremendous energy, technical ability. There is a sneaky element to Starks' game. I did a Twitter post on yesterday, Monday, I believe. I'll try to link it up in the description or in the comment section if you want to check it out. Basically, his eye discipline on pass plays, not run plays, on pass plays allows him to match routes and see the quarterback and break on the ball. Getting back to Green, a couple of final points. I have no idea, obviously, what his final sack output will be for him or Van Noy and Owe for that matter. Certainly, with a 17-game season, there'll be some type of rotation. My anticipation will be early in the season, Green probably plays in a targeted manner. And then once we get to week 6, week 8 maybe, he starts to be integrated a little bit more deeply, a little bit more consistently in terms of total snap count. The amount of depth that Zach Orr has everywhere, truly insane. The talent on the defensive side, I think, has been pushed over the top. Could be pushed over the top with a high-quality defensive tackle. That would be my main complaint from this draft, that maybe we didn't address it in as serious a manner, but I could be totally proven wrong as we get into the season and maybe Peebles or a UDFA or someone becomes that 4th D tackle that we can rely on. My initial grade of the draft was a B plus. I'm still going to stick to that, but clearly it could end up being low by week 4, week 6, week 8. Starks makes a couple of impact plays. Green forces a fumble, gets 2 sacks in a game. Clearly my grade could look inferior or a little bit low. As it stands, I went back and watched the film of Green. Like I said, didn't just notice the tenacity, the closing speed, or the violence, but the way he gets after the ball sometimes, the refusal to not end up at the football. There's one play against Virginia Tech earlier tonight. I put the video in the Discord and also up on Twitter. He It's against Virginia Tech, like I said, and he shows this like bounciness. You know how when the ball's in the air, sometimes a forward or a center in the NBA will jump 2 or 3 or maybe 4 times in succession to battle or challenge somebody trying to get the rebound and eventually secure that rebound. It's this quick ability to jump multiple times up in the air and gain access to the ball, in this case the rebound in the NBA. Well, for Green, this play against Virginia Tech that I'm talking about, what I did was I posted a second by second breakdown of his activity level, meaning throughout the entirety of the play, which I think lasted 11 seconds in this case. What was he doing during that time? So I will read it out, and then, like I said, I will show you or link you the tweet. At the 4-second mark, he begins a pass rush move, just as the quarterback begins to throw. Right as the clock ticks to 5 seconds, he elevates to get in the throwing lane. So less than 1 second later, maybe like 0.7. Just after the timestamp changed to 0.6 or 0.6 seconds, he spins inside to pursue the quarterback. A second later, less than a second later, I may have misspoken a moment ago, sorry. He dives at the quarterback's legs. At the 8-second mark, he makes contact with the quarterback's foot. Look, we're at the 5th action, the 5th evidence of activity: pass rush move, elevate, spin, dive, and then contact with the quarterback's foot on the dive. We're at the 5th evidence of activity, and only 4 seconds have elapsed. The 9-second mark, he had missed the tackle, gets up off the ground, and the 10-second mark, it should have been a sack in my opinion. The quarterback's knee is on the ground, but it looks like they called it an incomplete pass to me. My point is, you have 7 different pieces of activity that he put on film in about a 6, maybe a 6.5 second span. Truly remarkable athleticism. I would say he's got like elite NBA level athleticism. In NFL, incredible athletes, amazing athletes across the board, even the offensive linemen and defensive tackles. NBA athleticism, to me, the average height in the NBA, I think, is like 6'7", 6'8". The average weight in the NBA, I think, is like 230, 235, somewhere in that range. And those guys are running like a 4.6, 4.7, 40. That's just ridiculous. The athletic guys are, right? The guys that spot up in the corner and maybe play post defense. We wouldn't include them in that. But my point in mentioning NBA athleticism is Green, his activity level, his burst, closing speed, off the charts. That play really hints, if you ask me, at how disruptive he can be. To project what he gets in 2025, very challenging to do. I would say the floor for a guy with Mike Green's talent, 5 or 6 sacks, the floor. Another 12 to 15 quarterback pressures, 30 to 32 tackles. We would consider that a floor, but to be complimentary towards everybody else on the Ravens defense, we are full of fast, smart, combative athletes on that side of the ball. So from that standpoint, Mike Green will have to compete just to get to the ball sometimes, right? Ravens really drafted a game-changing player, not to mention, like I said, in Starks, a very good, smart, versatile, and experienced safety. Couple more points about Green. Forgive me for, again, not showing film. If you're interested ever in joining my Patreon, which gets you access to the Discord, we certainly show a shit ton of film in there. And so you're welcome to be able to use that if you wish. Post it on social media yourself if you want. A couple of missed opportunities from 2024. One missed opportunity and then an underutilized facet to his game that I think a lot of us, myself included, glossed over upon first examination. The Ohio State game from 2024. I mean, Ohio State blew Marshall out, right? But Green played exceptional against them. The right tackle, however, it must be said, the right tackle for Ohio State is not anywhere near to the level of tackle that Green is going to face in the NFL. I would have loved to have seen Green line up to the other side against Josh Simmons. Josh Simmons, Ohio State's left tackle that eventually got hurt, and of course, at this point now, has been drafted by the Chiefs in round one. Green played really well, mostly against the run, but he did have a sack and I think two other wins, clean wins against that right tackle. But look, that's what a smart coach does. If you have a Mike Green, you don't put him against a Josh Simmons. You put your best against the worst guy when you can to try to get as much pressure on the quarterback as possible, as many sacks as possible, as many wins and disruption points of the offense as possible, especially when you're Marshall and you're going to Ohio State to play the Buckeyes. The underutilized or under recognized perhaps element of his game is in coverage. I have two very nice snaps of him on film. They're in my Google Drive. I will share another one on Twitter tonight after this video posts up. Seems to have a good awareness there. Is there some things technically that Mike Green will improve on? Sure. I've seen him off balance sometimes after a tackle strikes him early. And I don't mean just like a jump set, but maybe he's getting ready to run a move and maybe his move is slightly later. Maybe his move is a tenth of a second or 2/10 of a second later than it should be. Um, but the burst, the closing speed, pursuit, effort, whatever you want to call those two, they could be synonyms, and then the supreme level of athleticism and that bounciness that I referred to with the play against Virginia Tech, off the charts. I am a huge fan of what the Ravens did here to acquire this type of talent late in round two. We're very fortunate, blessed, I guess some would say lucky that he was available at that point. I think there's certainly going to be some teams that regret their decision if Mike Green stays with no other issues that arise and produces in Baltimore the way that it looks like his talent should allow him to do. In any case, if you enjoyed the video, please let me know in the comment section. If you find my commentary style videos to not be nearly as entertaining, my apologies for that. But again, I will not be showing college film on this YouTube channel. Can't risk it at this point because of how much time and effort I've put into it. So I hope you understand. If you think other Ravens fans would enjoy this video, please consider grabbing a link to it, sharing it out on social media to help this content get more reach.